Hello and welcome to our podcast, Lessons Learned to Advance Your Career. This is a brand new segment of our global podcast named 10 Lessons Learned. In this special episode, we dive into the wisdom of professionals who have navigated the highs, the lows, and the turning points in their careers. We cover it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because, as we all know, success in your career doesn't typically happen by accident. It happens lesson by lesson. My name is Siebe Vanderzee and I'm your host. I'm a corporate executive recruiter with more than 25 years of experience helping companies find the best possible talent and coaching people to land their next, hopefully perfect job. My guests today are my dear friends Diana White and Robert Hossary. Thank you for joining us today. Robert is our podcast producer and co-host at 10 Lessons Learned. He's an executive at Lasercraft Australia, a company based in Sydney working with and for individuals who live with disabilities. Prior to that, Robert held several management level positions with companies in Australia, Taiwan, and in the United States. He also served as the general manager of the American Chamber of Commerce in Australia. And yes, having worked for and with many different companies, Robert knows what career advancement is all about. Diana White, is also a co-host on our podcast, and she serves as the Chief of Staff at the Arizona Technology Council, a highly successful organization focused on multiple technology industry sectors, operating in the fastest growing state in the United States. I believe you have more than 800 corporate members. She has over 25 years of experience in the retail industry with Barnes & Noble and the Follett Higher Education Group. Diana also provides business consulting services to help small businesses scale up. Actually, she's really good at that. And scaling up your career is exactly what we want to talk about here today. So, hello team. So happy that you're here. Thank you for joining me. How are you?
Hi, Siebe. Thanks for having us.
Doing good, Siebe. Thank you so much for having us on the show today.
Wonderful. So here we are, starting a new segment on 10 Lessons Learned, and we call it Lessons Learned to Advance Your Career. Can I ask you, even though it was my own idea, why do you think it makes sense to create this special segment on our podcast? Any thoughts on that?
Well, I know Robert has his thoughts on this, but I think for me, when I joined the team, we always talked about who is our audience. And our audience has always been that demographic of people that are trying to make their way in their career, trying to become leaders, trying to become experts, subject matter experts. And we want to give them lessons so that they don't have to do things the hard way. They can do things the smart way. And This is just another piece of that component.
I agree. We've all screwed up on our journeys.
Yes.
And the whole reason we have 10 lessons, the whole reason we have this particular special segment or special episodes is to help our audience not make the same mistakes we made and give them some insights. I'm sure that when we look back on our career, Diana, Siebe, we have had people to teach us those lessons. The famous Chuck in your case, Siebe, multiple people in my career. Diana, I'm sure you've got your special mentors that have taught you lessons. I think that's missing today. And so when you proposed this, Siebe, we all thought, what a brilliant idea. It's an extension of 10 lessons because 10 lessons is everything from business to life. This is specifically for your career. So that's why I think it's a great idea to have it.
If you look at the career advancement steps and process, you can think about, of course, finding a job, landing a job. You have a job and you hope to get promoted, or perhaps you are considering looking for a job elsewhere. What do you think? What is the biggest challenge that people have where they need perhaps some advice?
That's tough, Siebe, because every step in your career is different. You don't have any benchmarking. So when you first start out and you're trying to find another job, you've got a totally different set of challenges that you have to face. Can I do the job? Do I have enough education, enough skills? Who do I talk to? What do I do? How do I get noticed? And then as you move up, am I too old for this position? Do I have enough industry experience to land this job? So every step of your career path is fraught with I don't knows. So I don't know if that's an easy question to answer, because every time I have been in a position where I've looked for a new career, I have been inundated with these mental questions of, do I know enough? Can I do the job? And again, if you put the gender equation into this mix, it gets worse, because men are full of bluff and bluster, and women are more analytical and say, well, I don't have this. So really tough question for me to answer. So I'm going to throw it over to Diana, because maybe she can make more sense of the question.
You're going to have to repeat the question.
Well, if you think about the different elements of career advancement, from finding a job, landing a job, advancing in your job, or finding a job elsewhere with a different organization, which one do you think is the biggest challenge that people have when they go through this process? Finding a job, landing a job, advancing in your job, or looking for a job elsewhere?
I am going to say wholeheartedly that is an individual struggle. It's an individual journey. For some out there, landing their first job was probably as easy as going to their first college fair. And then they found the difficulty when they wanted to leave that job and find another one, right? And for others, they've been out of school for a few years now, and they still haven't found that right career path. And that's their struggle. So it really is the individual. And Robert was spot on with the fact that you add all of these other factors of, age and gender identity. Women, I'm going to get the statistics wrong, so our viewers and listeners will correct me in the comments, I'm sure. But they said something to the effect of, men have to be 20 to 30% sure that they can do something before they say, I got this. Women have to be more than 80% sure before they'll even consider saying that they're interested, right? And so you have that dynamic going on. So I really think it's to the individual. I think no matter how we would break it down and say, well, this is harder, you'll have somebody that says, oh, no, it's not. This was harder for me. So it's individual to the person.
I give you 10 points, and that's the max you can get, because I completely agree. It was more or less a trick question, right? Because it's very much based on each individual, and we're all different, and we're all in a different phase, perhaps, of our career, whether it is early or in the middle, or we have other issues where we say, hey, I want to relocate to a certain location. So there is no general answer. I can see that perhaps if you do a survey, that most people say, yeah, finding a job, find me another job. But that whole process that we're going to be talking about, it's based on the individual. So I appreciate that response from both of you. And Diana, I want to go to some of the lessons that you and Robert have provided. But in your case, Diana, obviously you're very bright, well-educated. I assume that you have had no challenges in your career advancement, a smooth ride, right?
Absolutely not. So that's a good point to bring up, because I think, when you have people that speak on topics like this, you have the audience that believes, oh, it must have been really easy for them so they can speak about this, but they're not in my shoes. So let me give the audience a little glimpse into my journey so they can understand. I was born and raised in New York. I started retail when I was 14 years old. And I did retail jobs for 30 years before I switched careers and went into the world of entrepreneurship and incubating and training companies, right? I didn't get my undergrad degree. I didn't get my college degree until I was in my 40s. So it wasn't a traditional, I went to high school, I went immediately to college, and then I immediately got that job, right? That's not how it worked. I had to hustle and work hard at retail jobs. Many years ago, I won't say how many, they weren't paying, forget the minimum wage. It was like, you're lucky if you got pennies, right? And so I had to learn a lot about how to manifest my own opportunities, because I wasn't necessarily the pick that recruiters would look for, right? I didn't have the college degree. I only had retail experience. I was African American, still am, by the way, if you don't know that, and a woman, right? And so I had to make my opportunities. And I'm still doing that to this day, even with a not just a job change, but an entire industry career change, right? I made all those opportunities happen. I started my own consulting business so that I can talk to other companies and show them what they can do. It's not that easy. So I don't want anybody to listen to us and think, they're just making me feel worse because they make it sound so easy. All three of us have been through so much that you wouldn't even know. And that's kind of what makes us really equipped to talk about what's happening in the circumstances that people find themselves in now.
Yeah, and also, of course, Diana, you are in a situation where you recruit people. So it's not
Yes.
only your own job search and developing your own career, it is looking for the right talent and assessing who you think is the right person for that. So let me take a look at lesson number 1, Diana. Surround yourself with people who are doing what you wish to do and start networking. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that is really essentially the lowest hanging fruit you can have. If you are aspiring to be something, work some trade, work for a particular organization, one of the first and best things you can do is start to surround yourself with people who are already experiencing those things, right? If you decide that you want to build the next AI fad or whatever, surround yourself with people that are already working in AI. Get to know the language, get to know who knows who, get to know who are the right people to talk to. If you're on the outside of that industry looking in, you're never going to know those nuances. But you can get yourself closest to the inside by talking to and networking with people that are already on the inside. Even if you don't have a job like theirs, there are many things that connect people and make us human beings together on this planet, right? Doesn't necessarily have to be your occupation. It could be, I love to play pickleball. And I also have wanted to change careers for a very long time and go into this field. Well, the next pickleball team I join, I'm going to see who is working in that field, and I'm just going to make friends while we play pickleball. It's as simple as that. Just make friends.
It makes a lot of sense, the networking aspect, and we'll get into it in a little bit. But for example, if you look at a site like LinkedIn, your network, which then becomes visible to other people, and if it shows that you, Diana, express a great interest in pickleball and you follow people in pickleball, then someone who wants to hire someone for a pickleball organization, it's kind of silly the way I say it, but of course, that's visible in your profile. But at the same time, when you talk about networking, it has to be genuine. It's not just to say, I just want to associate. You build relationships, and obviously it helps in multiple ways, not just to promote yourself, but because you have a genuine interest.
It has to be genuine. I would never recommend that you go out on LinkedIn and start stalking people and saying, connect with me, and bombard them with DMs and all that kind of stuff if you don't know who they are. That is not what we're talking about here. It's great to start, as you said, building that connection list, right? Joining the different groups that would make sense. If somebody were to look at your profile and see if you are interested in this new field, it would make sense that you have those connections. But when I'm talking about networking, I'm talking about authentic, organic, in-person networking.
Yeah.
If you can. Yeah.
Very good point.
I just want to add to that. Personal experience, it actually works. When I got my first, it's actually probably my second real professional sales job, I joined an organization called SWAP, Salespeople with a Purpose. It was just a meetup. We would meet once a week. We would have breakfast. We would listen to motivational speakers or industry experts or whatever. But I learned my trade from the people I networked with.
That's right.
Through that, over the years, it opened up, job opportunities or employment opportunities in other organizations. So, yeah, I agree with Diana. Network within the sphere that you want to be involved in. Absolutely.
Well, it's a good way to transition to lesson number 2. Robert, you provided it. You never know who knows who. So respect everyone. Opportunity will depend on what people think of you. It very much fits with what we're talking about. But Robert, explain that a little bit more.
Well, I'm sure that all of us and our audience would also have experienced the embarrassment of being rude to someone only to find out that that person is more important in your organization than you thought, or influential in a way that will affect you and affect your job. I learned this when I was 18. My first job, like Diana, I went straight from school into work. I got my degree and master's, later on in life. But my very first job, I was 18, and the whole circumstance is not really important, but we had a gentleman come into our reception and it just gave me the stink eye. And I just thought, who is this jerk? And I gave him the stink eye right back. Well, he was the general manager of our organization.
Oh, man.
And I was brand spanking new. And so he wanted to know who I was. But yeah, my career didn't go anywhere in that company because I pissed off the general manager. But it taught me a lesson that you just treat everybody well. And that's where I got my philosophy of just, respect is lost. So just treat everyone well, treat everyone with respect until they lose your respect. So, and that wasn't the first time. It was the first time, but it wasn't the only time that I had made that mistake. But I didn't make it more than, another 1 or 2 times. I learned quickly. But I'm sure Diana's done or had a similar experience. Siebe, I'm sure you've had a similar experience where you've overstretched your perception of someone and you were wrong. And it's affected your career, it's affected your business. So people, just be aware that, you don't know the person that you're going to be pissed off at. So don't be pissed off at anybody unless they give you a reason.
Yeah, growing up in New York, I don't have to tell you, New Yorkers can wake up pissed off just because it's a Tuesday, But when you work retail, same thing Robert said. Like in retail, we were always taught, you have to be nice to everyone because you never know who may be your next customer. You could be in Midtown in Manhattan shopping or hailing a cab and have an argument with a person because you hailed the same cab and you're arguing over that cab. And then you'll go to work and that person will walk right through the door of your store because that's just karma sometimes and serendipity, right? And so I don't know that I've had too many of those instances where I've misjudged someone because I just grew up with that mantra of you be nice to everybody. You never know who's going to be your next customer. And I'll take it even a step further. When you talk about 6 degrees of separation, right? I can't tell you how many friends that I've made, just friends, that we may be friends over books. We may be friends over makeup. We may be friends of a women in wine club. And then I find out that maybe their husband is the senior VP for a tech company, right? And now when I say, oh, do you think I can have an introduction? I can get that introduction because his wife and I are now friends, So, and I'm not saying this as a manipulation tactic. It's not about manipulation. It's about making friends, understanding what resources they bring to the friendship, and being transparent and using them wisely. And if you treat everybody kindly, you're more apt to be introduced to more people because that person knows that egg is not going to come back on their face. Because Diana, Robert, Siebe, they're great people. They're great to me. They're going to be great to the other person I introduced them to.
Yep, absolutely.
I had a very, very smart, intelligent person give me a lesson, and it reads, don't play politics unless you want to sell your soul. Actually, I got it from Robert. I think it's a very good phrase.
Yes.
Don't play politics unless you want to sell your soul. That goes, of course, beyond, and we're talking politics. You got to be careful with that. But it's something that, as a job seeker, you have to be careful with what you say and how you say it. That's the bottom line, and the consequences could be there. And look, if you're in a powerful position, and we can think of several individuals, multi-billion-dollar companies, they can do whatever they want.
Right.
And I'm not saying it's right or justified, but that goes with the attitude, I'm untouchable, so I can say and do whatever I feel like. But most people, of course, we got to be smart about it. Even if you are right and they are not right, we got to make sure, especially in the process of looking for a job, that we control that a little bit. So lesson number 3, coming from Diana: update your resume every year, even if you don't plan on leaving your current role. Update certifications and new responsibilities. It sounds very pragmatic. What are your thoughts?
Oh, this is a big one for me. And I'm going to throw the headshot in there as well. Let me preface by saying I'm trained in HR. And so I do hire for other companies, right? And I see a lot of people who get a job and they think, oh man, I'm never leaving. I'm never leaving this job. I love this job. And then you get other people that go, this is a 3-year plan and I'm going to step on and move up, right? Whatever the case may be, whether your plan is never or 3 years or 1 year, keep your resume updated. Anytime something new happens in your life, a promotion, a certification, a new skill set that your job paid for you to get trained to do, but now that skill is in your brain. They can't take it from you if you leave that company. They can't take it back, right? You update your resume. I've seen way too many people that have stayed at a job for years, and now, whether by their own design or whether by the company because they're downsizing, they have to look for something else. And now they have to try to recall everything that they've learned new. And they have to cram 10 to 15 years of experience into this resume and try to remember it all and remember the flow of it and when it happened. Update your resume every year. Even if you plan on never leaving, you just never know. I'll give you a really good example. I am so happy with Arizona Technology Council. I don't see myself leaving, but I just recently got nominated for a pretty prestigious award, and I'm very excited and very happy to be amongst these wonderful women. I had to submit my resume, and I hadn't updated it when I took this new job. And so those are the kinds of things that you don't think about. And I will tell you this with a little bit of levity, because I'm trying to keep it funny. If I get another profile pic and the picture is 20 to 30 years old, I don't know what I'm going to do. There has to be a point. I did an article about this on LinkedIn, and I talked about updating your headshot because it's all in the eyes. Even if you are lucky enough not to age, even if you've got some Benjamin Button situation going on, your eyes show wisdom over the years. Your first headshot that you ever took with your first company, your eyes are wide and bright because you're like, my future's ahead of me. Your eyes are now saying, been there, done that. I know the deal. I'm wiser now. You need to update that headshot and you need to update that resume. Those are my thoughts on that, but I'd love to hear Robert's thoughts on that too.
I agree with you about the headshot. And yeah, I do agree with you. I mean, if your bio is not up to date, and your bio is or should be reflected in your resume, then you're going to have some work ahead of you. And you're right, you can't remember everything you've done. I agree with you, but I've also seen resumes that are just full of shit. I don't care whether you have, when you were 16, you worked at McDonald's. I don't care whether your resume says that you've got 16 certificates in X, if it's not relevant. So you got to be.
But that's a part of the culling, right? Because if you're updating it every year, you have to take some stuff off.
And that's the point. That's the point I was trying to make. You're not, please understand it, Diane. It's not just saying update your resume and keep putting stuff in it. Update your resume. Make it current to your situation, to your personality, to what you're doing. Nobody cares what you did when you were 18 if you're, in your 50s. Nobody cares. It's not relevant to the job. So, yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
I mean,
As
unless
long
it's
as people,
pickleball. If it's pickleball, then
unless
we
it's
all
pickleball,
care.
it's got to be.
There we
Well,
go.
if you got pickleball, I don't think pickleball existed when we were 18.
A few thoughts about resumes. It is an important document. Let's not underestimate the importance of that. Many years ago, more than 10 years ago, research was done, however they did that, and it turned out that recruiters, other than hiring managers, they spend a few seconds to read someone's resume. Now, we all know it's humanly impossible to read a 2-page resume, left to right, top to bottom. But the top part of your resume is your billboard. That's what captures the attention. And yes, it's your career in reverse chronological order, your current job, your previous job, etc. Important is that you don't leave anything out, even if it is, Robert, that you worked at McDonald's, but you can summarize if you're talking about people who have, 30-year career experience, experience prior to the year 2000, just to pick a number. At least you cover it, and that could be just, in this case, McDonald's, okay, without getting into the details. It's very important to look at a resume as a document for the future. And I use the phrase that I learned from others, your key achievements that you would like to repeat in the future. Diana, I'm making this up here, but you have quite an extensive career in the retail industry. And if you say right now, yeah, I'm happy I did that, but I'm looking into another area, like the Technology Council, then it's not that you have to advertise your achievements while you were in the retail industry. You want to mention it because it's part of who you are, but it's not that you want to advertise and say, that's my ambition, that's where I want to go. So as you say, and I like it, you update it. Absolutely. It makes sense to have an updated document. You get a question, hey, can you send me your resume? And if you then have to think about, oh my gosh, I haven't worked on that. I have it happen a lot when I talk to people, I get their resume. Yeah, I've been doing this for many years. I can see within a few seconds that, and I asked this person last week, I said, when was the last time you applied for a job? He said, oh my gosh, it's a long time. Well, I can see that from your resume, and it's outdated. Mm-hmm. In his case, he had his home address on his resume, and I recommend strongly, especially in the United States, but I would say in other countries as well, leave that private information off your resume. But I do understand and respect that there are countries and cultures where you do have more personal information than what we are used to in the United States. So obviously, we can devote a whole episode of our podcast to resumes. And with that, of course, Diana, I know you think the same way as far as LinkedIn and perhaps other social media to do the update as well. But again, I really appreciate we're sitting here with my dear friends, Diana White and Robert Hossary, talking about ways to extend, advance in your career. They have a tremendous background. And before we go on to lesson number 4, a simple question for both of you. What is the impact of AI on recruitment and the job search process? Simple question. Maybe
Well,
not.
I'll start with that one. So you'd have to ask me from which side, right? Because AI is being used on both sides now. You've got applicant tracking systems, and then you've got a lot of people using AI to help write their resumes and their cover letters, right? So I just think here's my philosophy on AI, and I don't want to brown nose here because at some point AI is going to listen back on all this, and I want them to know that I was one of the good ones. I love you. So I love you, Skynet. So here's the thing. I feel like there's this big fear of the unknown with AI, and there are some concerns, right? We're starting to see that it is starting to develop its own protocols where its own survival, it's starting to supersede what it's being programmed to do. Instances of that, they're a little bit scary, yeah. But I've always seen AI the same way people now have Microsoft Office and all of those other platforms so integrated into their lives, right? Before Excel, what did we do? We had 10 keys, we had calculators, right? And now none of us can really live without Excel. Even people that don't even use Excel are being touched by people that use Excel, right? Word, you can't do a document without having some kind of Word program, even if it's not Microsoft Word. So I feel like that's AI. We're going that route, and we're going to get to the point where really there's nothing that we don't do without it. But I think we should stop the fear of it and understand what it is, if only to say, I truly understand what it is now, and I'm still afraid of it. It could do some horrible stuff. But in terms of the career search, if you're trying to update your resume and you're trying to make it more succinct and you're trying to make it flow better, you're not plagiarizing. It is your work. You did this experience. It's you. Use AI to help you with that, if you can, to give you a leg up on the competition if you can. And if you're an organization and you know that when you put out a posting, you're going to receive 5,000 applicants, and there's no way in the world that a human can go through all those applications, yes, it makes sense to use an ATS to look through all of that and bring the cream to the top. So I feel like there's a place for it. Just as with anything, if you use it for nefarious purposes, that's a bad thing. Just use it for what it was meant to be used for, and still understand that behind all of this AI, there are human beings on either side. That's my thought process on that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Robert, any thoughts?
Look, it's a tool. If it's used as a tool to make life a little easier, so I don't have to go through and think about the right sentence structure. For example, it's a tool. So from the candidate's point of view, from a job seeker's point of view, use the damn tool. Learn how to use the prompt correctly so that it works in your favor and it sounds like you. From an organizational point of view, I see what you and Diana have said, Siebe, that you can't go through thousands of resumes. I get that. But at the end of the day, the recruiter's job is to find the right human for the position. And using a tool like you mentioned to just scan for keywords out of resumes, I think sucks. This is my personal opinion, because I've got a file on my PC when I was looking for a job with over 200 to 300 applications, with some of them with a response, most of them without. And it was, you don't have enough industry experience. You don't have this. You're overqualified. You're underqualified, because the keywords were not there.
Right.
So I started, when AI came out and I was searching around, I would throw the ad into AI. I would put my resume into AI, and I would say, based on this position, write me a cover letter. That looked for those key skills. And yes, I got some responses. Yes, I got interviews, but that's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is the businesses, the recruiting companies more so than the individual businesses, use these tools to vet. Great. But you're missing out on really good human beings who can do the job. I've always employed people on potential, never on their experience. And to realize their potential, you need to meet them. I'm sorry to be contrary, but that's what you asked, an opinion. That's
that's why we have this podcast. I love it. I love it. And I do understand where you're coming from, obviously being on both sides of that spectrum, right? I understand where you're coming from. I will say, though, and I've said this before, I think in one of our meetings, that when it comes to finding the right person for the position, you've got the contingency of applicants over here that want a job. They need a job. And let's face it, each and every one of us may be one paycheck, 5 away from really being in dire straits, right? And so if somebody's looking for a job, it's not for kicks and giggles, right? They really need the work. And then you've got the other side where the organization really needs somebody to come in. Every organization now is lean. There are really no organizations left that are like, hey, we've got enough money time. We can give this person a chance to get their feet wet. They want somebody that can step in, minute one and start doing exactly what they need to do. Most companies don't
And
even
that's a
have
fallacy.
a
That's an absolute fallacy.
I'm
That will
talking about
never
the U.S.
work.
I'm talking about the U.S. Most companies don't
I
even
agree.
a really, really good, robust training program and an apprentice program
Yep.
the way they used to do, right? So here's the deal. This is what I always say. And I've had to say this to friends that have told me, I don't want to hear those words right now because I'm in dire straits and I'm looking for work and you're not helping me. But I still stand by these words, which is if you take away the filters and you go back to, we've got this one person that's looking for a job and needs it badly, and this company that needs a person, and you get them together, and that person wasn't the right fit, and it would have been found out if they used an ATS. Both are miserable. Both are miserable, and both have wasted their time in a wrong fit. I have been in situations where I need work. I need work so bad, like it's dire. But I would never just take a job to take the job because I'm so desperate, because I know at the end of the day, I spend way too many hours there and I would be miserable and they wouldn't get the best from me. And I'd probably end up getting fired, to tell you the truth, because I don't do well when I'm not happy. I don't do well, right? So I think that's my take on it, is that it mitigates that risk of this person saying, I'll be whatever you need me to be. I just need this job, because that always doesn't pan out.
I agree. I agree. They're not the right people for the position.
All right, moving along. Lesson number 4, Robert, be the connector in your network. This opens many doors. What do you mean with that?
All right. So I mentioned Swap. So we would go to Swap and I would introduce new members to existing members. It wasn't my job. It's just something I felt comfortable doing. Oh, Diana, you're in this industry. Siebe is also in a similar industry. Why don't you have a chat? Or maybe you guys share a similar client base or a target market. I kept that up in almost every position I ever had, whether it was with Japanese companies where I would introduce clients to other clients who may be able to collaborate together. And it all culminated at the American Chamber, where that was actually my job. When you're running a chamber, it's your job to connect companies together and people together. So what I found is doing that built up a reputation. So I built that reputation amongst my network to the point where if I wanted something, I could talk to the people that I helped in the past and I could get it. I could get the introduction. It opened up a lot of doors and I actually got the job at the American Chamber. And one of my network said to me, oh, the general manager at AmCham is leaving. And one of our contacts, and this is really interesting because that contact was Duff Watkins, the recruiter for that position. And I just picked up the phone to Duff and I said, dude, what's going on? You got a job going at the chamber? I can do it. He goes, I didn't think you'd want it. But the fact that I wouldn't have known about this without all of the connecting that I had done for these people, it opens doors. And again, it goes back to respect. I never did anything to lose a respect to the people that I worked with. So that respect level was still there. Therefore, when an opportunity came up and they knew I was looking, they helped me. So, yeah,
Now, is
be the connector.
that something that is something that you are that person that does that, or is it something that you had to learn and say, you know what, I need to do more of that?
It's a great question. No, I am that person. I always liked putting people together. I always liked connecting people because, I don't know, I just like helping people.
It takes time. It takes time. There's no, let's say, guarantee that somehow that will pay off. Diana, your thoughts on that?
Yes, I absolutely believe it. And Robert's right. It can be innate in you. You can always be that person, but it takes years of cultivating it and figuring out the right people and figuring out the right times I'm a connector too, and I'm a servant leader. I always want to be of service.
Mhm.
I've had to, over the years, pull myself back a little bit because it started to get away from me. And it started to be that thing where anytime somebody opened their mouth, I was ready to be of service. And that not only is that taxing on me, but it's also overwhelming to the person that I've just met, that they're just telling me offhandedly, yeah, I'm looking for this blah, blah, blah. And here I am trying to solve all their problems. And I've just met them 2 minutes ago, right? So you gotta work with the good and the bad of that. So I'm so with Robert, and I think that's why we get along so well, that we have that same philosophy. But I've also been in the same situations where I've made these connections, and there'll be an opportunity, and I'll realize it's an opportunity, and then I'll have to get out of my head of talking me out of it to say I'm not ready for it, because that's what we women do, unfortunately, some of us. And then I'll find out, as Robert did, that, oh my gosh, the person that's in charge of that opportunity, I know them. And we have a really good relationship because I keep good relationships with so many people. So I just can't stress enough. It goes back to that whole surround yourself with the people who are doing the things you want to do, make those positive, authentic connections, and keep your ears open.
It's more than just a job description and a resume.
It really
Mhm.
is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, let's move to lesson number 5, Diana. Learn the why behind your company's vision, mission, and values. And then you added, when you learn the why, you can contribute and have intelligent conversations with leadership. Makes sense to me. Your thoughts,
Sure.
please. Yeah.
So as somebody that does recruiting, right? And Siebe, you can contest to this. Why do you want this job? I need the money. Why do you want this job? Well, I hated my other job and I saw you guys were hiring and you look like a cool company. It goes on and on and on. Nobody ever said, why do you want this job? Well, you know what? I'm trying to figure out what I want to do next, or I've figured out that this is my passion. And when I did my research, your company kept coming to the top, aligned with that passion. Seeing myself being able to do X, Y, and Z with your company because that's where your passion lies. It's a match made in heaven. But they don't do that because they're just so desperate to get the job. And I think one of the most important things you can do when you're looking for a job and you've been called for that coveted interview, take your time, go through that website, learn their values, their mission, their vision, make sure it aligns with yours. Please make sure it aligns with your, don't learn it just so that you can fool somebody into thinking that you want the job. Find out if you really want the job. And if you do, now you understand what they're about, and you can go and have an intelligent conversation with a melding of the minds, right? You can sit there with the recruiter and you can say, I love the fact that you started a robotics program for K through 12. When I was a kid, I did robotics. That's all I ever wanted to do, right? It's such a different dynamic. And that networking doesn't stop with people. The networking also extends to entities, companies.
Yeah. Robert, your thoughts?
I love that last point you just made. Yes, absolutely. You don't just network with people. Look, I don't have much to add to what Diana said because she's absolutely correct as always. But we just need to be aware of our values, the values of the entity we want to go and work at. There are very rare occasions where you just take a job for the money or just to have a job.
Yeah.
And it turns out to be your dream
Right.
job. Very rare. It does happen. We're not saying it never happens. It does happen. But if you're banking on that, if that's what you want, then you might as well buy a lottery ticket for your retirement because it's the same chances there.
Well, it's a great point. And at the same time, of course, you have to be realistic. I've been using this sentence for decades, and it's not even funny anymore. But my personal chances of winning Wimbledon tennis is not going to happen. And by the way, I never won a tennis match, but I like tennis and I've been to Wimbledon many, many years ago. So I say that you got to be realistic with what you want to achieve, because it's one thing
I
to
still
say,
believe in you, but you can do it.
I know I can. I know I can.
Or you
And
can switch to pickleball.
that would be a conversation for a different time, because I am a tennis player. But it's indeed, it has to connect, it has to fit, right? It's not only like, wow, I have a passion for it. It has to make sense. But those are very important topics to talk about and to understand, the why behind the company, and understand and do your research, because it is important to feel comfortable in that environment. And at the same time, if you don't like what you find in your research, then maybe that's not the right opportunity, even though the job is open, but you got to be realistic with yourself. So I want to move to lesson number 6, Robert. Find a purpose. What is the use of climbing the corporate ladder only to be alone and unhappy? I love that question in there, but find a purpose. Please explain your thoughts.
This is something that I recently discovered. By recently, I'm talking the last 5-8 years. I was on that corporate ladder. I was climbing. I wanted to be this and that. And, I would accumulate titles. So I went from, a sales manager to a national sales manager to a divisional manager to a regional vice president. Loved all of those. But you know what? It was the same job. More responsibility. It was still a strategic position, but it was the same job. I now don't have a fancy title, but I now work with people with disabilities, and it is the most fulfilling position I have ever had in my entire 40-plus year career.
Think about that.
And I didn't realize until I got this job, which, by the way, we'll go back to the previous point, I just got because I was studying, I was getting my master's, and I thought, let's just get some extra cash coming in. And I went there and I started working because it was close to home. But my God, to know that at the end of every single day, I have made a difference in a human being's life, I can't even tell you what that's worth. I don't get paid what I used to get paid with those big fancy titles. Let me be very clear about that. But my reservoir is full. Yeah. My heart is full. I am happy every day because I'm doing something that meets my values, that is worthwhile. Having said all of that, all of the nice fluffy stuff, I'm still a strategist. I'm still in there using my skills, doing what I do. And it's benefiting the people that I'm there to help, as opposed to buying my boss a new BMW or sending my boss and his family to Paris.
Yep.
This is the difference. So when you start aligning your values with your job satisfaction, then I think you'll find a lot more gratitude will fill your heart, and a lot more peace will come to your life. But if I went down the track, for the rest of that quote, Siebe, if I continued down the track chasing titles, then I would never have experienced this joy. And I would have just been accumulating titles, getting paid, stepping on other people to get above them. And I wouldn't have the satisfaction or the joy or the gratitude that I have now. Would I be alone? Who knows? But it would be empty. I can tell you, in my opinion, my success would have been empty. So that's what I mean by that. It's not for everybody, but I can surely say to everyone that if you can find your value, you won't look back.
Wow, strong point. Diana, can you
I'm
add
not
something?
following that. No way, sir.
Please.
That was perfect. It was perfect.
Absolutely. Find a purpose. And I truly hope that our listeners will see the value of the information that we are sharing and that it can be helpful to them. And in particular, again, on our topic, advancing your career. It's very helpful to have that purpose. That was the sixth lesson that we have discussed. And I want to thank you both, Diana and Robert, for sharing your lessons on career advancement with our audience. I really appreciate it. I want to make some closing remarks. You've been listening to our program, Lessons Learned to Advance Your Career. This episode is, as always, produced by Robert Hossary, and we are supported by the Professional Development Forum. I also want to give my special thanks to our production team, Yi Wang, who manages our marketing and social media, and Cody Camo, our episode editor. Our guests today are my dear friends and co-hosts, Robert Hossary and Diana White. Both of them sharing their extensive career management and career advancement experience. And to our audience, I hope you enjoyed this special episode. Don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss a lesson that could impact your career and perhaps your life. Thank you for tuning in to 10 Lessons Learned and this special segment called Lessons Learned to Advance Your Career. Our goal, as always, is to make the world a little wiser, one lesson at a time. Thank you and stay safe.